Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to your WWE Raw review for March 21st, 2022. We have only got one Raw left after tonight before we are at the show of shows. A lot of stuff starting to get hammered out. WrestleMania card is nearly completely intact, although we still have a few matches still yet to be announced and a few things yet to be finalized, and some of these matches still need to be assigned a night. But in terms of what happened tonight on Raw, it was an okay show. No Cody. We're going to talk all about Cody and what happened with Seth Rollins tonight. And it looks like they're inching ever so closer to actually debuting and Cody appearing before our very eyes. I think the likelihood of that is now going to be next week, unless they really, really want to push it until WrestleMania itself. But I think from the very beginning, we've been kind of eyeballing the Raw before, the go-home Raw, and Mania itself for Cody's debut. I personally, not that I'm totally against a post-Mania Raw for debut for Cody. I think I'd rather come in at WrestleMania if I was him. But, I'm also not him and I'm not WWE. So I think that the magic of the Raw after Manias feels like, it's been lost for several years now. And I don't even know if Cody coming back on that show, because by then it will be extremely predictable. It'll be pretty much a given that he's showing up. I think at this point, the best place to make an impact is next week when Seth Rollins comes out on Raw, and he's going to be crazy desperate, and maybe that's where we get either an announcement or an appearance from Cody. We will see, but there's a lot on the show planned for next week. Brock and Roman are going to be there to finalize their deal heading into WrestleMania and a lot of other stuff, and we'll talk about what we saw tonight in terms of Stone Cold Steve Austin and Kevin Owens, or I should just say Kevin Owens, and the rumors circulating the internet the last couple days that Owens and Austin is now rumored to close night one, which is kind of interesting and not really the most horrible decision in the world either, to be honest with you. So we'll talk about all of that and any other wrestling news tidbits that are floating around out there. I didn't get a really good look at the wrestling news today. I saw a couple of things, but nothing too major. Tonight's discussion is going to be mostly about WrestleMania and Raw and what we saw tonight and what we're going to look for next week, and of course this week on SmackDown, all that good stuff. But hello to everybody that is here in the chat already. Nice to see Rodrigo and Rarely Even, and JJ Leg, Steven, Josh, Nate, K-Dogs, Kennel is in the house. I want to shout out Kevin. A couple of funny things happened last night. We watched WrestleMania 18. We did a watch-along of that last night, and Kevin chimes in with a very generous super chat, and I guess I'm trying to watch the pay-per-view and I'm trying to read it at the same time, and he was talking about WrestleMania 7, saying, hey, I'd love to see a review of WrestleMania 7, but I kind of read it as watch-along of WrestleMania 7. I'm like, you know what, dude? For a super chat that generous, we'll just go ahead and grant your wish. Next Sunday, here we go, watch-along, WrestleMania 7. Went ahead and posted the link, put the thumbnail up, and everything. And then when I go back to reread his message, he actually said review, not watch-along. But we're going to do a watch-along anyway, because I think that will be a fun one to look at. We're going to go all the way back to 1991 and watch Hogan and Slaughter, Savage and Warrior, the blindfold match, all sorts of fun stuff on that pay-per-view, and it was a really interesting time, and I have specific memories to share. I watched the show with my mom and my dad. My mom cried during Randy Savage and Elizabeth's reunion. It was quite amazing. So we're going to watch that this Sunday, courtesy of Kevin, and the link is already on my channel right now, as well as a link to Kevin's YouTube channel. So all of that, you can head over there, find it, click on it, save it for Sunday, and give it a like, all that good stuff. So what's up, Kevin? Also want to say hi to Keith. Ronnie is in the house as well, FRGN, Divine, Ricks, and Ajax. And Ben is here, right on, Atomic Cody. We've got George Morris chiming in with the $5. Thanks, dude. Hey, Greg, how are you doing? Raw 0 out of 10. My GM mode on WWE 2K22 on Raw books the same matches over and over again for 5 weeks straight. Is that how it works? I don't know anything about video games, but I have heard about GM mode and universe modes. I don't know what any of these things mean. But if GM mode means you're at the mercy of whatever they book for you, that kind of sucks. 0 out of 10 tonight. I don't think Raw was great tonight by any means, but I think it had a couple of strong suits. I think Seth Rollins is being extremely entertaining in his WrestleMania desperation. And the opening segment with Kevin Owens coming up, which we'll talk about in a minute, was awesome. Well, it's awesome. Cody isn't showing up until Mania. I would never be stupid enough to guarantee that in my head. How the fuck do you know? You don't know anything. Random, man. I'm kidding. I'm being a little bit harsh, but no, there's no way he could very well show up on Raw next week. There's no right answer to this, and nobody knows for sure. So don't be coming in this chat pretending like you know. You don't. Knock it off. Good to see Big J as well. Got my eye on you. Good to see you as well. And did I get Michael, Ben, all you guys? Straight Edge Mondo is here. Caught the last few minutes of Raw. Kevin Dunn or whoever's in the truck couldn't push the mute button faster when Seth was on the mic. It seemed like Seth was having a lot of mic trouble tonight. He had it in that opening segment and then at the end, and he was like really losing his mind. I was trying to think of Brett, back in 97. Frustrated isn't the goddamn word for it, and he's tearing shit up. And Seth was quite upset. But, that was the perfect finish to do, even though it was predictable as hell. As soon as Sonya and Adam were stupid enough authority figures to actually potentially take AJ Styles' match away from him after he was brained by Edge with the double concertos a couple of weeks ago, then they're going to take that away from him and give it to Seth, just like they were going to take Owens' stuff away and give that to Seth. That was kind of messed up. So with Seth losing his mind now and them, them getting in the middle of it, I wonder what they could really do next week when it comes to that, if Seth comes out and interrupts somebody else. But I think it was kind of messed up that they not only did this to Owens last week, but they did it to AJ this week. So that was really the finish you needed to do. You're not going to not do AJ and Edge. So the minute that match was made backstage, I think everybody on Twitter was like, well, Edge is going to come out and cost Seth the match. He's probably going to attack AJ to not only protect his match with AJ, but to further the storyline with Seth. And now he can claim, since Adam and Sonya tonight said it was his last chance ever, well, he can be like, well, that wasn't my fault. I had nothing to do with it. Edge came out and screwed me over. So they will probably concede and give him one final chance. I put on Twitter earlier that I think he should come out next week because Roman and Brock are going to be on the show next week for a segment. So Seth should come out and interrupt that. And then Sonya and Adam should come out and make a handicap match. Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins. And then if Seth Rollins wins that match, he is then added to the unification match at WrestleMania, and Cody doesn't even show up. And a whole bunch of people don't understand sarcasm. They're like, no, dummy, he's going to face Cody. I'm like, oh, gosh. Wrestling fans, I wish that sarcasm detectors were available on Amazon. I would order hundreds of them and send them out to the wrestling audience, but I found that funny that just nobody understands humor at all. But I think that would be funny next week, jokes aside, if Seth really did come out and maybe get in the middle of that. He's like, what better way than getting the main event if I can weasel my way in here? There were a lot of fans actually calling for Seth to be added to this match in the first place. I still don't think it's going to happen, obviously. Seth is definitely going in to Mania to face Cody, but they could at least tease that next week. It might be fun to see those three interact. I don't know, but I definitely think they're going to have some big segments planned next week. I think you could technically, what a great way to sell WrestleMania to the fans that think that he's going to show up at WrestleMania and that's it. Cody's just going to show up there. Why wouldn't you show up next week on Raw? You do the Brock and Roman stuff, to either open or close the show, maybe open the show to get fans ready for the main event, and then you close out with a big surprise, and Cody might get a few extra eyeballs and a few more a little bit more buzz going around WWE and WrestleMania with a great go-home Raw and a big debut and a new match added at the last minute to WrestleMania. Might just get a few more people to take notice and, maybe buy it, maybe even buy a ticket if they were thinking of going, that sort of thing, because Cody isn't going to be something you can advertise. Cody is probably going to be a lot like CM Punk in AEW. It doesn't really need to be advertised. He's going to be there, but if you put Cody on Raw next week, that does give you at least 1 week to promote it and talk about it like crazy on social media, on YouTube, on SmackDown. Show 10,000 replays of Cody's debut right ahead of WrestleMania. Show replays all throughout the NXT show, the Hall of Fame, all that stuff, would be a lot of promotion in a short amount of time, albeit, but it would still be some promotion for the match. And I don't think debuting next week is the wrong decision. I don't think either way is wrong. I'd love to see Cody just come out at Mania like a lot of people want, but I certainly don't think there's anything wrong with him debuting next week. If anybody does think that's a problem, then you're crazy. It's not a problem. And you got a warped ass idea of what the hell, how fun wrestling can really be. Bring him out next week. What's the harm? What's the deal? We all know he's coming, so at this point, I think it would be fun to make the most epic entrance as possible. So yeah, you could argue that could be at WrestleMania, but you close out next week's Go Home Raw with Cody. That could also be quite the moment there. So I think it could kind of go either way. And I'm kind of indifferent about it. Both would please me. Cody showing up at WrestleMania and that being his first appearance is probably what Cody would prefer, because what a way to debut in the company, re-debut in the company, come out on the biggest show instead of on, what, aside from if it's a WrestleMania season, is a really, really boring 3-hour Monday night show every week. So yeah, I'd probably want to come back at WrestleMania too. So that could very well happen, but you can make a case for next week. You totally can. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see him. But tonight, I didn't expect to, because now the word was, leaked out this week that he has, in fact, signed, and nobody's really questioning it or second-guessing it anymore. We all know he's coming in. So now that kind of softens the surprise as it is. We already kind of knew he was coming in. Now this pretty much guarantees it. Crowd was chanting Cody like crazy tonight on Raw, so he's definitely coming in. And it's just a matter of where you can make the best splash, where you can make the best impact, where you can land, where all the fans are going to say, that was fucking great. So I'm curious what WWE has in their head. I'm sure they know. I don't think when it comes to Cody that they're still deciding. I think they have a plan with him now. So this is all part of it. So they already know when Cody's going to debut. It just depends on, when it will be. But Seth is getting desperate. Should be fun to watch him next week go nuts. Yeah, we're going to talk about the Veer announcement as well. April 4th. Oh, good point, man. April 4th, but is it this year? What if it's April 4th, 2023? You really going to pay this guy a year's salary just to troll us? I don't know, WWE. Seems like a waste of money to me, and a waste of a talent doing nothing. But yeah, it could be the following year. But then again, April 4th probably does not fall on a Monday next year. So I guess we finally have a date on good old Veer, who's taken an awful long time to come. My God. Anywho, I think that is it. Did I get all the super chats? No, I didn't. Spartan Sprinkles, I owe you a $5 shout out. Thank you for that. Next week, I hope Seth desperately and maniacally chases Dana all show. So maybe that's his only chance to get into WrestleMania, is to win the 24/7 title so he can be a part of some ass backwards crap at WrestleMania. But man, there's still battle royals. There's still other matches that haven't even been really assigned yet. We got no Balor and Priest match, or no Balor title defense. We got no Ricochet title defense. I'm assuming Xavier Woods is going to come in to team up with Kofi to take on Holland and Sheamus. No announcement of that. We're supposed to have battle royals. Is there going to be an Andre and a Mae Young one, or what are they doing there? And of course, Cody and Seth is kind of unannounced as well. So there are still ways for Seth to get in there. He could jump in a battle royal, or jump in a 24/7 deal, or try to get into that Balor and Priest business if he really wants to get desperate next week. So it should be, based on what happened to Seth tonight, I think it'll be really entertaining to watch his desperation, especially next week, and especially if Cody doesn't show up next week and then he is forced to go into WrestleMania, probably stressed out as hell. I'm going to be there. I'm going to crash the show. But he kind of said on the mic tonight that Raw is not even going to happen until he gets what he wants or whatever. So we might even open up with Cody next week. I wouldn't rule it out, basically. So lots on the table, for this stuff. Yeah, thanks, Timu. Sorry you've almost completely fallen out of love of wrestling. It definitely happens to the best of us. Don't feel bad, man. Oh yeah, Cody comes in, get him on Broken Skull Sessions. That was one of the first things I tweeted. I even made a photo of it. I put Cody on top of a Broken Skull Sessions overlay with Austin, and I'm like, make this happen immediately. I think I did it the day that Cody announced his departure from AEW, because that would be a great interview, because Austin's going to ask him, what brought you here? Why are you here? Why are you sitting across from me right now? We all thought that you were, basically going to be heading up AEW, be a big part there, but Dusty did the same thing. Dusty was the booker. Dusty had a lot of power in the NWA and WCW, but then left and came and put the polka dots on with Vince from like 89 until 91 or whatever it was before heading back. So, I don't know what Cody's motivations are, but it would be awesome to hear about him, especially if he had some sort of sit-down interview with Steve Austin or whatnot. So anyway, let's get into Raw tonight. Before I do, please do me a favor, smash the thumbs up button for me. If you'd like to subscribe to me, you can do that as well. We're here every single Monday for Raw reviews. We're here most Sundays for classic pay-per-view reviews, and we're also up here on Wednesdays for AEW Dynamite, Dynamite watch-alongs. Sundays we're here for classic pay-per-view watch-alongs, excuse me. Wednesdays for Dynamite live reactions / watch-alongs. However, got a programming note for you. I am going to be skipping this Wednesday. I've got another big WrestleMania-related video that I want to kind of finish up and get some editing done. I've got some other things I kind of want to do, and I need to take advantage of the day off on Wednesday and get these things done. So since it's probably going, we're not like right next to an AEW pay-per-view or anything like that, it's probably going to be a very good Dynamite, Thunder Rosa celebration, that sort of thing, but probably a typical Dynamite. So I am going to be skipping this Wednesday. I think it's the first time I've skipped a Wednesday since we've been doing watch-alongs. So that will not be a regular thing, but I figured I need to take advantage of that on Wednesday, get this other video done so I can get it hammered out by the weekend to you guys for WrestleMania week, and I can probably throw some mic drops on the channel, stuff like that. And then we'll be back this Saturday for a pretty big podcast as well to discuss everything we missed on Dynamite, and of course Rampage, SmackDown, and any additions to the WrestleMania card. And we're going to go through the whole card as it stands right now later on. We'll talk all about that this weekend, and then the weekend after that, it's Mania time, and that's going to be crazy. We'll be up here every night of the of Mania weekend, I believe. I should be here Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Go home, so it should be 4 straight days of streaming for WrestleMania weekend. It should be fun, and that's creeping up, and it's creeping up quick. Let's get into Raw tonight. This was so good, and it was so almost predictable. So Raw kicks off tonight, and they do a wide shot of the stage, and the glass shatters. And I'm like, Austin's coming out. And it was like immediate. Like the minute the glass shattered, I was like, sweet, Austin. But I'm like, wait a minute. They didn't advertise Austin. They advertised a whole bunch of shit today on WWE's Twitter page and on WWE.com. You think for 1 minute if Austin was going to be there opening the show tonight, they wouldn't announce the fuck out of this on social media? So I'm like, it's Owens. And you can always tell, too, because when the music hits, there's that little delay. He doesn't come out right away. I'm like, it's going to be Owens. And I was like, he's going to be wearing the bald cap and everything. And sure enough, he came right out. I immediately thought of The Miz, when he was doing The Rock. I was like, this has got Owens written all over it. Sure enough, he comes out in the jorts. He's got the 2 knee braces. One of them's even undone, which always seemed to happen to Austin. And he's got an Austin 316 shirt and a bald cap. I did my best in a very short amount of time to make a bald cap Kevin Owens. I purposely made it as ridiculous as possible. I could have blended these colors together, but it looked ridiculous on him in the ring, so I wanted to look ridiculous on him here on the stream. But I did find it interesting that he was wearing an Austin 316 shirt, because who's Kevin Owens' ring name named after? Who's Kevin Owens' son named after? The guy that used to wear an Owen 316 shirt. I Just Broke Your Neck in 1997. So when Owens came out, I looked real close at his shirt right away. I'm like, what does it say? And it was just a normal Austin 316 shirt. But that was probably discussed. He might have even discussed putting Owens 316, but that's kind of an ugly reminder of a very ugly situation, an ugly match back in 1997. So I found that interesting. But he looked hilarious. He's not Will Sasso. It's not the best Austin impression that I've ever seen, but he was still really funny. And he got on the mic. He starts running down Austin, and then Austin's music hits again. And, of course, the crowd gets excited. Owens looks scared, and then he starts laughing again. And Shawn Michaels would have loved this segment. Shawn Michaels approves of this one because he essentially did the same thing in 2005 in Montreal when, he made everybody think that Bret Hart was coming out. So Austin kind of fooled the fans twice, or Owens fooled the fans twice, which was great, and talks a little bit more shit, does the Austin mannerisms, and then says that he's going to drink some beers, and the ring crew guys start throwing him the Broken Skull beers, which are way stronger than the Coors Lights and shit Austin used to drink back in the day. He starts throwing one to Owens. He drops it, and then he gets mad that they don't know how to throw beer, brings the poor ring crew guy in the ring and hits him with a stunner, and then does the Austin thing where he gets over top of him and does the head deal. Really funny stuff there. So I thought that was great. So I think now Austin, I don't know if he'll be on Raw next week. I don't think he will. I think this is one of those deals where they can keep these guys separated until Mania itself. Although I suppose it's possible Austin can be on the show next week. But if he is, and Cody's there too, that will be a hugely stacked event. I think we probably will not see Austin until WrestleMania. So But I'm sure he's going to respond to this. As a matter of fact, like he did last time, he's probably already filmed his response to this. He probably filmed his response to Owens' promo tonight. He probably filmed it yesterday, and he'll release that on social media first thing in the morning, and WWE will retweet it. So look for that. Otherwise, they probably will not come together until WrestleMania. And I don't know if you guys can point me to an exact source here. Was there anybody at all credible that was talking about the Austin and Owens stuff main eventing or closing the show on night one? Because if they decided to do that, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world, because it'll keep all the fans in the building until the end. And you've got, we saw this last night when we watched WrestleMania 18, and it's happened a few times in WrestleMania history where by the time you get to the main event, you're so damn burnt out that you don't care. And if you get all this great Austin and Owens stuff earlier on in the show or in the semi-main event, and then you try to go out there and care about a Ronda Rousey and Charlotte match, it's going to be kind of hard. I think the crowd could definitely be flat, especially since, what else do they have here announced for night one so far? I have all my shit here. Yeah, and Bianca and Becky are on the show as well. And I think that's really all I've got. It doesn't look like night one is that stacked. Even McAfee and Theory are the next night. So, they might need something a little bit stronger, honestly, than Rousey and Charlotte to main event this. So if the plan is to put Austin and KO in the final segment, then I guess I'm cool with it. Now, we talked about this on when we were here. We were here Saturday to talk about the news of Cody officially signing with WWE, and I did mention the possibility of that main eventing, and maybe that's where you brought out Cody. I mean, it could be Kevin Owens and Austin doing their thing, and then Seth Rollins gets involved. Cody makes the save, and Austin kind of welcomes back to WWE. Maybe that could be something they could do there, but I also think that you could do Cody and Seth on night two, so it just depends. But I think if you did this in the main event of night one, I actually am okay with it, only because I have so little interest in Rousey and Charlotte Flair. 4 years ago, when they wrestled on pay-per-view, it was quite good. I was a big Rousey fan back then. I am so just disinterested in her run and her return. Doesn't feel the same as it did before, and I much prefer, Bianca Belair and the Becky Lynch stuff. And so I'm not really interested in having this main event. I'm not really interested in having, Rousey win the title and celebrate. I don't even know if the fans are really going to pop and celebrate hard for that, if they're really going to go home happy, high-fiving each other after they leave the arena. What a show. I don't know if you're going to get that from fans if it's Charlotte and Ronda Rousey. However, if it's Stone Cold Steve Austin stunning the fuck out of Kevin Owens for a few minutes and drinking beer and saluting the crowd, they're going to leave the arena and say, I cannot wait for tomorrow night. It makes sense. Makes sense. So in terms of my personal opinion, if that's the plan, no problem with it. Totally understand. Would probably do the same thing myself if it was up to me. But I would probably also move a lot of these matches around where I might potentially not even have to do that if I booked shit right. But, both your world titles are being defended in the same match on night two for the men. So it's either put one of the women in the main event or, Austin. And I think Austin is probably the right call for a lot of reasons. So, okay. So Dave and Mike and Sean, everybody saying that stuff. Yeah. I just guess I've been a little bit out of the loop on the wrestling news crap last couple of days. I haven't been glued to it, been watching the bigger stories and reading Twitter a little bit, but I'd never really caught an origin of that, where that came from. But, honestly, I'm actually cool with them doing that. Absolutely. So Owens finishes up his segment, and they go immediately backstage. We don't even go to commercial or anything. We go to immediately backstage to Seth Rollins, who's being interviewed about him not going to WrestleMania. And Seth, this is why I just think he's got such a great character right now, because he just starts bizarrely laughing. This is a guy who in storyline and in kayfabe has got a serious, he's got a serious likelihood of missing WrestleMania and missing his WrestleMania payday, and he's laughing like a fucking hyena while admitting that he doesn't even have a plan. He's just gonna try shit. So he's being confident about something that he really has no idea how it's gonna work out, and he just starts laughing his ass off, and he goes, give me this, and he wants to borrow his microphone, and then he leaves. We go to a commercial. We come back. We've got, we don't go to commercial. We just go to the ring. We've got Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio taking on the Dirty Dogs, Bobby Roode, and the new NXT champion, Dolph Ziggler. Very weird to see him coming out there with that championship. And before the match really gets going, they start working a little bit. Seth Rollins' music hits, and he's now out on the stage with a microphone he stole from Christopher Dickerson or whatever the fuck his name is. So he's got the microphone out there, and he basically says that he wants a WrestleMania spot, and he's going to go bigger. Last week, he went after Austin, but he's going to go bigger than Austin now. And while he's talking about this, his microphone is kind of cutting in and out. He's having microphone issues, tapping on it. It comes back in for a minute for him to speak. Then it goes out again, and he basically gets pissed, and we go to commercial. We come back from commercial. Seth is now gone. Match continues. And the finish saw a 619 and a frog splash to Bobby Roode from Dominic Mysterio for the win right after the match. Ziggy comes in, nails Dominic with a super kick, and The Miz, who was joining the commentary team at the booth, skull crush finales poor Rey Mysterio on the outside of the ring, and then rips his mask off, completely off. Now, a few guys have done this to Rey throughout the years, and they've teased this a few times. I think Seth was trying to rip off the mask. Everybody's been trying to take off Rey's mask. Nobody's really achieved it, and Miz took it completely off here. And I really hope that's not, I just hope that's just to get heat. I really hope that's not leading to any sort of mask match or anything like that, because if The Miz, of all people, takes off Rey's mask after 35 plus years, I know Nash did it in WCW, but, they tried to restore, the sanctity of the mask with Rey Mysterio. And if they are ever going to unmask him and we're going to see his face, The Miz is literally the last guy. I'd have Dana Brooke unmasking Rey before The Miz. So I don't think that's something they're going to do at this stage of Rey's life. I fully expect Rey's Hall of Fame speech to be masked. I think he'll be in his mask and a suit for the Hall of Fame, just like he was when he inducted Eddie, inducted Benoit, when he was with Benoit inducting Eddie. So I don't think that's something I'm going to touch, and I hope it's just kind of a one-time deal to get some heat based on The Miz's commentary during the match and what we saw last week on Raw. Last week, I actually wrote down notes for Raw. We, of course, did the big Scott Hall tribute last week, but I wasn't going to talk about Raw unless Cody showed up. But I didn't know if Cody was going to show up until the end of the show, so I had to make notes for the show anyway. And just in case. And I could tell last week by what they were doing that they are going to try to turn Logan Paul face, right? Because Miz is talking about how he's mentoring him and showing him the way or whatever. This is eventually going to culminate in some sort of a problem, miscommunication, some sort of an argument, conflict, whatnot in the match. And then I think they're going to try to have Logan Paul turn on Miz, turn babyface, maybe even kind of align with the Mysterios at the end of the match and just have a happy babyface moment. I feel like that's what we're going to get, but I also am not sure if WWE understands that it's not going to be that easy to get Logan Paul over as a babyface. Fans were booing the shit out of him. He was here in San Diego after SummerSlam. The crowd was deafening with their boos. So I don't know what they're trying to achieve here. Sounds like Logan Paul might have genuine interest in remaining with WWE for a while and doing more with them. So they might want to make him a babyface and somebody, instead of somebody that's just deliriously hated by the audience, make him a babyface while he's learning and, getting his shit together. That's the only thing I can think of, but it looks like something's going to happen. He's going to turn on The Miz, probably knock The Miz out, and then Rey and Dominic will beat The Miz for the win at Mania. That would be my guess. We then go backstage to Sonya and Adam, who is with Seth Rollins, and Sonya points out that, hey, we gave you a chance. Seth is demanding something to do at WrestleMania. She's like, we gave you a chance. We nearly took Kevin Owens' show away from him with Steve Austin to give it to you, and you failed. You lost, so you failed yourself. We didn't do anything. And then Adam kind of chimes in and says, oh, maybe there's something we can do. And during all of this, you would think this is a very desperate moment for Seth. He's just still laughing and cackling. It's just the weirdest thing. It's not like he's got some plan in his head. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's just trying to figure something out to get into WrestleMania, but he's just laughing like it's not a big deal, which it's just funny to watch him be so desperate yet be so nonchalant at the same time. It's funny to me. So I find that weird, though, with Sonya and Adam. Why would they do? They are shitty GMs. I mean, I like the fact that the authority figures are not such a huge part of the show anymore, and they're not a Vince or Triple H or a Stephanie where they're just douchebag asshole heels. These two seem incompetent. These two seem like they really are trying to do their job. They just really, really suck at it, and I don't know how Vince is okay with this fucking performance. Who would do this? You've got advertised matches, matches booked and signed for WrestleMania, and you're willingly putting guys in situations where they're going to lose this. It's not like haven't done stuff like this before. WrestleMania matches and title shots have been on the line plenty of times, but Adam and Sonya are doing it so willy-nilly. Oh, okay, well, we'll put you in the ring with AJ then, and then if you beat him, you're going to face Edge instead. And it's like, why would you do that? Makes no sense from a authority role perspective. So Adam's going to think about it. Then, excuse me, we go to the ring and we've got a handicap match. Last week it was Omos. I believe he defeated Commander Aziz. And this week he's taking on Commander Aziz and Apollo Crews. Now, last week, Omos's match looked pretty good. He had one crazy, wonky-ass looking suplex that he delivered to Aziz, which really looked awesome. Thank God they didn't fall and injure themselves, but it was probably maybe even the best match Omos has ever had. And this one was no different. He was completely dominant, just destroyed Apollo and Aziz. When they had this repackaging of Apollo, I was really optimistic. I was like, okay, this is something for him to do. It's different. I don't know if the accent's necessary, but just him having something to do, having him, get a bodyguard, that type of thing, and just giving him like a character and a persona to play with. I was really optimistic that this could be something great. But, after his run with the IC I think he had, I mean, it just never just follow through or just keep the push going. Everything always just fizzles. And I don't know why that is in WWE. It's just the norm there. So after he beats the hell out of them and beats them both, he cuts a promo and he basically, in so many words, lays out a challenge for WrestleMania. Now, there's already been a lot of chatter this week about Omos and his opponent, and apparently WWE's got somebody pretty big planned in place for him at WrestleMania, and he is going to have a singles match there. And this tonight pretty much confirmed that. Now, the reports that were flying all around I saw on Fightful Select today is Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley being his opponent, tapping him out to the Hurt Lock. I would love it. What a way to bring Lashley back. I feel so bad for Lashley that, he finally is starting to get in big-time money programs, working with Brock and stuff, and then he gets injured the way he did and has to drop the title in the Elimination Chamber. Now that if he's, healthy enough to go, he could be the first guy to knock off Omos. And some could maybe argue that accolade should go to somebody else and not a 43-year-old Bobby Lashley, but I'd be fine with just reminding the fans that Lashley is still a player. And I still think Lashley has unfinished business with Brock and Roman and guys like that. So, and it would also, if he's healthy, give Lashley something to do. If Lashley is healthy enough to work a match, I would hate to think that he was left off WrestleMania after the year or so that he's had, finally getting on the map with the world title and stuff. I would hate for him just to be a scratch. If he's healthy enough to work, he should be in there somewhere. So if that is the case and he's going to be the one to face Omos, and Omos has been so dominant, hasn't lost at all. How long has he been in the ring now? He debuted. I don't even know what he did last year. I'm just pretty sure he debuted at WrestleMania last year, right? Was he like AJ? What was the match? Probably Omos and AJ against somebody, right? So he hasn't lost at all. So somebody's got to beat him if it turns out to be Lashley. What a way to remind everybody, that Lashley is here. And if the rumors of the unification being bullshit are true, and WWE, in fact, after WrestleMania is going to go back to having two champions again, the Raw brand will have Lashley back as a very strong, very dangerous competitor. So it'll be interesting to see how they hammer all that out after WrestleMania once one guy wins the title. If it turns out to be Roman, does he really show up on Raw the next night and give one of the titles back? Something tells me that's what they're going to do, and I don't like that at all, but it very well could happen to where he might do that. And then on Raw, that night after WrestleMania, look for them to crown a new champion. Like, I swear to God. Like on Raw, Roman might be like, I smashed everybody. I've smashed so many people. I have 2 titles. There's nobody left to smash. So here, I don't need this. This black one's kind of ugly. Here, take this back. I'll just keep this one and I'll just smash people with 1 title. And then Sonya and Adam can be like, okay, yeah, here we go. Tonight we're going to have a fatal 4-way or something for the vacant WWE title. And maybe in that match you put Bobby Lashley, Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, and Edge, and Cody walks away with the title. Just saying. I don't know. Or maybe Seth does. That might make more sense, especially if Seth jobs to Cody at WrestleMania. He's been losing. He's been losing every week, right? He lost last week pretty much clean to Kevin Owens. This week was a disqualification, and he's probably going to try to do something next week to get a win. He might lose again. Then if he goes into WrestleMania and loses to Cody, that would be 4 losses in a row, only to turn around the very next night on Raw and win the vacant WWE title. Think about it. I don't think that's out of the question at all, something like that happening. So who knows, but it will be fun finding out. Omos, however, going into Mania to face Bobby Lashley, I'm cool with that. Some people think it could be the Great Khali. Let's just shut up about that and say no. Could be Hornswoggle. Could be anybody. We'll find out. But I like the Bobby Lashley idea. And other than him, I would maybe say Veer, but they announced Veer for April 4th. So I don't think it'll be him. So I don't know who it's going to be. We shall see. After that, we get AJ Styles coming to the ring. This is his first time back since being murdered by Edge. And we have been anticipating his comments because that whole program took a turn on the very first night that we weren't expecting it to. Lately, since Styles has been off TV, Edge has been getting this new persona over, new look, new music, new demeanor, new attitude, new everything. And AJ basically says a few words and calls out Edge. He goes, we don't have to wait till WrestleMania. We could just do it right now. And instead of Edge, Seth Rollins comes out. So Seth comes out and basically says, AJ, you took such a beating. I saw what happened to you. You need to just go home. I'll face Edge. Don't worry about it. I got this. And AJ's like, you are fucking crazy. And then Adam and Sonya, of course, come out, and that's where they are complete assholes. They announce that, okay, Seth, this is going to be your last chance. You and AJ Styles tonight. If you beat AJ, you will face Edge at WrestleMania, which is just such a dumb decision. I think these two are incompetent at best, and both need to be dealt with swiftly by somebody in upper management in WWE because they suck with these decisions. That doesn't mean whoever's in their place will suck any less. I'm sure they'll suck just as bad, but these are just real bad decisions that authority figures are making, and they don't make no sense. So there we are. Main event is set. AJ and Seth Rollins later on. We have some little backstage thing where Zelina and Carmella are talking or trying to talk. Zelina's talking to Carmella. Of course, she's on her phone. She's glued to her phone like everybody is, and she's not paying attention. And then Zelina gets mad, and they actually start fighting. So they literally start fighting with each other. And I'm like, okay, I already don't care about the women's tag team titles as it is. Now these two women, who I also don't care about, who have titles that I don't care about, are now fighting, and I don't care about that. So I think that Bruce and Vince were sitting there at Gorilla, and Bruce looked over at Vince and said, you know what? I think I know how I can make Greg hate the women's tag team titles even more. Let's start splitting up Carmella and Zelina and give them dissension. That's a great idea. Great shit, pal. Do it. Then we get a match, Zelina and Carmella versus, I'm sorry, is it Zelina and Carmella? What the hell is the match here? Yeah, Zelina and Carmella, right, against Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley. And Carmella got distracted. Or no, she came out and started complaining to Corey. That's what it is. Oh, I've got this all wrong. Okay, my bad. My bad. It is the Rhea and Liv Morgan against Natalya and Shayna Baszler. This is what happens when you do Raw notes and you underline the wrong shit. So Zelina and Carmella backstage. Carmella is distracted on the phone. Zelina gets pissed. They fight. Then we go to the ring for a tag team match. It's Natalya and Shayna against Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan. During that match, Carmella comes out to complain to her boyfriend Corey that she got in a fight with Zelina Vega. In the ring, the babyfaces win. Rhea and Liv get the victory. Then they immediately start brawling on the outside of the ring with Carmella. Zelina then shows back up, and her and Carmella miraculously just make up with each other, back on the same page. 11 minutes after they were brawling backstage. So if you want to think about the exact opposite of Bret Hart reuniting with Owen and Davey in 1997, this whole situation here was it. What a waste of TV time. I don't give a fuck about this fatal four-way women's tag team title match. I don't care if a chicken and a frog walk out of those, both with those tag team titles. I've never cared about a championship in the history of pro wrestling less than this one, and that includes the 24/7 title. I'm just not a fan of how these women tag teams titles have been handled. I think they could be a great championship. I think you could have great women tag teams in the company, but man, it's booked with such little care, such little love. Like, they literally don't even care at all that these things exist. They just book matches because they have to. It's so horrible. Speaking of horrible, Becky Lynch had a promo next. Robo Becky came out with her crazy looking sunglasses, said a whole lot of nothing in between those deep breaths of hers in between her sentences. It was just a whole lot of just gibberish bitching about Bianca Belair. So we have not seen Bianca because she got her ass kicked by Becky last week. A little bit of revenge. I have been calling for the braid to be chopped off, but now I'm starting to think it's going to be even dumber than that. I don't know. I've also been calling for a WrestleMania squash for some reason. Both women's matches currently are scheduled for night one, which to me makes no sense. But if that is the case, like I said before, if you have both women's matches on night one, you can afford to have one be 10, 15 seconds long. So I would do a squash right here, full circle moment from SummerSlam, and have, especially next week on the go home, you got one more chance. I think Bianca will be there, so will Becky. If you do run an angle where Becky does a little snip to that braid, I think that would be perfect timing, because then Bianca can show up extremely angry at WrestleMania, maybe even have a little bit. She's going to have a lot different of a look with her big braid. Maybe she had debuted some shorter hair. Maybe it's down, but shorter or something. And she gets in the ring very angry and beats Becky Lynch in seconds, quicker than Becky beat her at SummerSlam, and gets the ultimate revenge on her, ending her 3+ year run, whatever it is, with that, with not losing that championship. I think that would be awesome. But, you know, every time I lay that out, as good as it sounds in my head, I got to remember this is WWE, not me. And do they really want to lose her twirling to her music? You know, is her music going to be the same if she can't come out and twirl the braid? Does she get another one sewn on or something? I don't know. But, you know, I think at first she should be short-haired and pissed, but that might take away from her dancing routine. I really don't like that wrestlers have routines when they come to the ring, because that shouldn't fucking matter. You know, you should be able to do a storyline without worrying about what your entrance is going to look like or whatever. So, I don't think what I'm laying out, it's going to be that gnarly. I think it's going to wind up being a little more tame than that. I just really wanted to see some good heat here. I wanted to see Becky get, you know, just really eviscerated by the crowd and just get a ton of heat, chopping off Bianca's braid, and just watch Bianca come beat her ass at WrestleMania. I think just the fans would love it. It would just be great, and it would give, you know, Bianca some evolution to her character, to her look, to her attitude, something that every single wrestler needs, male or female. So that's the way I would do it. But WWE doesn't do things the way I would do it. I've noticed that. After that, we've got Finn Balor taking on Austin Theory. Pat McAfee joined the commentary team. This was kind of cool because I'm fascinated with the dynamic between McAfee and Corey Graves. I think Corey Graves has done a great job on commentary. You know, when he first started and got going, a lot of fans, I thought he did great at NXT, and a lot of fans have called him kind of the modern day Jesse Ventura. He's since kind of, you know, worn off that a little bit. He's kind of not as entertaining as I used to find him, but I still do think he does an excellent job. Corey Graves does, regardless of how douchey he dresses and how ridiculous his show with Carmella is. He's decent on commentary, always has been. But then along comes Pat McAfee, who gets hired by the company and just charms the pants off all of us. He has been fantastic on SmackDown, makes the show enjoyable, makes the show watchable, and his dynamic with Michael Cole is better than I ever expected it to be, considering their heat from Michael Cole getting him in trouble at WrestleMania, and that story made my blood boil. That story made me want to punch Michael Cole in the face, and the fact that McAfee and him were able to not only get past that, but work together and joke about that situation, I think is awesome. So McAfee has been one of my favorite parts of WWE since he got there. I had no idea how entertaining this dude was, and we got a glimpse of that in NXT with the Adam Cole stuff, but now that he's on TV every week in an announcer capacity, he's just great. He's fantastic. He looked like he's got a good relationship with Vince McMahon. Vince was on his show, and even McAfee has claimed that Vince doesn't yell and scream in his ear and micromanage him to death. He's pretty much given free reign to be himself, because that's what makes him great. So why are you going to handcuff that? It's like them allowing Big E to finally just be as crazy as he wants to be. And they're not going to tell him what to do. So McAfee's kind of the same way, and watching him excel the way he has, not only on commentary, but in the ring, you know, something that Corey Graves, he can also do both of those. Corey Graves was a former wrestler before he had to retire, and he has been cleared to return to the ring. So I think that is a natural match to do if Corey can actually get in the ring and actually work. I'd eyeball that for SummerSlam. Like, swear to God, I would eyeball to do McAfee and Corey Graves potentially at SummerSlam if you were able to slowly kind of, because they could build their match on commentary on the respective shows, talking smack back and forth. Of course, you're going to have a couple shows where they're both in the same spot, but McAfee can just talk his smack on SmackDown. Corey can do the same thing on Raw and do whatever you can to get the match over there. I think it might be fun to do it that way. But anyway, McAfee's on commentary. Him and Corey do interact a little bit, and he winds up distracting Austin Theory enough for Balor to roll him up in a small package for the win, so at least they weren't pinning champions here tonight. And I don't even think that was a title match. And now Balor seemingly, is going to go into WrestleMania, I would hope, to defend the title. You would think against Damian Priest. Both of these guys deserve that match. Priest has been great throughout this year. The big match he had last year with Bad Bunny and having a fantastic year, virtually undefeated. He's just lost a couple of matches in a year's time. So if he gets a title shot against Balor at Mania, I'd be cool with that. I'd be cool with, I'd be cool with Damian Priest getting a title shot against Finn Balor and Bad Bunny doing a run-in and turning heel and joining Damian Priest. Now it's heel Bunny, and he helps Damian Priest win the U.S. title from Finn Balor. If not, I'd like to see Bad Bunny come out and maybe help Finn Balor beat Damian Priest. I don't know why I'm expecting Bad Bunny to be there. I don't even care. But if he did, I'd put him somewhere in that match and have him do something with Priest, either turning on him and remaining babyface or turning heel with him. Might be fun. After that, help me out here. I didn't catch, I think this was a tag team title match, but it was RK Bro defending, am I right, against Alpha Academy. I wasn't watching too much of this match. I was a little bit distracted, but I do know that RK Bro got the win. After the match, Otis attacked, and the Street Profits came out to make the save. And as they were helping Riddle up, they nail him, and then Montez hits Riddle with one of his beautiful frog splashes. Although he wasn't as smooth on the landing this time. He might have just been trying to protect Matt. But we're getting a three-way at WrestleMania for the belts, RK Bro, Academy, and Profits for the Raw tag team titles. Weird place for Randy Orton to be in, but he really does seem like he's having the absolute time in his life, and you love to see it. So for Orton to be in a relatively, low-profile match on the show, but still he being one of the more over acts in the company with Riddle, I just love that he seems to be happy doing that. That's pretty awesome. He'll be champion again. You can bet on it. After that, man, when they say Raw is a chore, this is the type of shit they're talking about here. We've got Dana Brooke and Reggie taking on Tamina and Tozawa in a mixed tag, and they've been showing the love stuff between the love relationship development, I guess, between Dana Brooke and Reggie and Tamina and Tozawa and all of the kisses. And I just hate angles like this because I know that, kayfabe and, real life are two separate things, but wrestling still is different now. And it's really stupid to watch people be in relationships on TV when probably because you follow them on Instagram or Twitter or something like that they're married or they're in relationships in their real life. And to try to pass this off, that's one thing that I think Bruce and Vince need to understand. And it's one of the things they're so grossly out of touch with, is that there are some angles now that you just should reconsider doing because the internet has changed everything. And nowadays, with everybody having a profile somewhere on some form of social media, and with virtually everybody in the world using some form of social media, the likelihood of people already knowing about the personal lives of some wrestlers is very, very high. So it would be the same thing as them trying to, it's how they changed Pete Dunne's name to Butch, but, they just think that fans don't remember anything. But what if they just started having Becky having a love interest with somebody on TV? We know she's married to Seth. They've even done storylines together, but they've had a kid and everybody knows they're together, and it would be the same thing. Why would you do that? Plus these, I guess they're meant for comic relief, but they're just so unnecessary. You got to fill this time somehow. I understand, but man, could I give two fucks about any of this stuff? Dana Brooke and Reggie won. Who cares? Who knows what it's going to lead to at WrestleMania? They'll probably make an appearance, and they might have, oh God, I don't even know what's going to happen. I don't even want to know. They're probably going to have some really weird segment with them. Maybe some four-way orgy, who knows. And finally, in the main event, I was really hoping that Seth Rollins and AJ would be able to follow the mixed tag, because that was such a barn burner. Move over, Hogan and Rock. Dana, Reggie, Tamina, and Tozawa tore the house down on Raw. But after that, we finally got the main event. Great match on paper. Seth Rollins, AJ Styles with the stip. If Seth Rollins wins, he replaces AJ Styles in his match with Edge. So naturally, Edge, since we haven't seen him all night, isn't just going to sit back and let that happen. We kind of all assumed we were going to see him. Rollins and Edge put on, I guess maybe a 23, 25-minute match. Real good stuff. But in the end, as AJ, I believe he's about to go for either a phenomenal forearm or a 450 springboard, and then Edge appears, nails him on the back with the steel chair. Referee calls for the bell. Seth is like freaking out. I was like, no, don't call for the bell. And Seth and Edge have had that run last year, and just to watch Edge kind of looking at him like, sorry, I'm doing what I got to do. And Edge really looked like he didn't care at all that he cost Seth that match. So AJ wins via disqualification. That match remains intact at WrestleMania, which we figured it would. There was no way that Seth was actually going to walk away from this match with a victory and face Edge at WrestleMania. So we knew what we were going to get there. We just didn't know exactly how it was going to go. And then Seth went on, I guess what his version of a Bret Hart 1997 tirade, and gets on the mic and tries to say bullshit a couple of times where they bleeped it, got really mad, was tearing stuff up, kicking the ring steps, that sort of thing, and he's going ballistic. So this should make, his desperation should be very entertaining to watch unfold next week, as he's got one night left. He's got 3 hours of TV left, unless he shows up on SmackDown or something this Friday, which he might. I would actually do that with him. I would get him there on SmackDown on Friday and find him something to do. Just sneak him in the back door and say, come on, give me one more shot on SmackDown. And goes out there and fails again or something, and then gets his final shot on Raw. I don't know. But next week, at least on Raw, we're going to see him. We know that for sure. And he should be pretty damn funny trying to figure this out. And like we talked about in the beginning, it's just a matter of, when do you bring Cody in now? Is it going to be next week on Raw? Is it going to be WrestleMania itself? It's going to be fun. I think maybe next week. I think next week is not out of the question, but seeing Cody debut and the lights shining on the entranceway and him coming out to whatever song he comes out to, doing that at WrestleMania, the pop. I'll agree with the guy that I snapped at the beginning for so confidently saying that Cody is going to appear at WrestleMania in his debut, is that's probably where it is going to happen. I mean, honestly, when you look at all the different options, I personally think, yes, that is the best. I just don't think next week would really necessarily be bad either. I think because it would, like I said, it would give you a full week to promote the match on social media and on the internet. You can replay it like crazy on YouTube, on Twitter, on your website, replay the hell out of it on SmackDown, on the Hall of Fame, on NXT, all that stuff before you finally actually get to the match. But it'll be interesting to see if next week on Raw, Seth, like for example, if we don't see Cody, do we get the match announcement? Does Seth fail yet another opportunity? I think that would be a good way to do it. They give him one final opportunity next week. But if you do that final opportunity in the main event, a lot of fans are going to maybe expect to see Cody. If he doesn't come, they might be upset. But do you think Seth leaves Raw next week still not having a WrestleMania match, which means he's got to crash the party on night 1 or 2 or both? Maybe he crashes the party on night 1 and we still don't get Cody. And then and then they throw him out of the ring, and then he crashes on night 2 and then we get Cody. Like they tease us until they finally give it to us. So next week will be interesting to see if he does not win a match or not get what he wants. And we are heading now into WrestleMania with Seth Rollins still with nothing to do, which means we just have to expect him to show up somewhere on the show. So I don't know if WWE want to do that. That's literally zero advertisement, but, it goes back to what I was saying about CM Punk coming into AEW. Sometimes that works just fine. We didn't need them promoting it. All those people packed out the United Center and, 1 million+ eyeballs tuned in, every one of us, to watch what we already knew was going to happen. So they might be viewing it like that. I don't know. But speaking of WrestleMania, here's what we've got for WrestleMania. I've even written down the nights that I believe that these matches are scheduled to be on, and we got a few matches that are unassigned, and we have a few matches that are unannounced. So we'll look at that. Here's what we got for night 1. Drew McIntyre against Happy Corbin. Logan Paul and The Miz versus the Mysterios. Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs taking on the Usos for the SmackDown tags. We got Bianca Belair challenging Becky Lynch for the Raw Women's title. Ronda Rousey challenging Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's title. And Kevin Owens hosting the Kevin Owens Show with special guest Stone Cold Steve Austin, which should break down into a full full-blown brawl. If it does, it's probably just going to be Austin stunning him, celebrating with the crowd, and the crowd going home happy because they got Austin. Or you could overbook the hell out of it, have Seth Rollins crash it, both guys attack Austin, put him down, Cody comes out to make the save. That closes the show. Cody and Austin cheersing beers, and night one over. That could happen. That's an option. There's lots of options. Isn't it cool when we have options? Night two, we've got Pat McAfee and Austin Theory, and Johnny Knoxville against Sami Zayn, the triple threat for the Raw tags, Streets, Alpha Academy, and RK Bro, and Lesnar against Roman Reigns, title for title. Edge and AJ Styles is not assigned. Neither is the women's four-way tag team title match. Those two have not been assigned tonight, I don't believe. You guys might know. If it has, please inform me. I did not see matches assigned for those. And the possible matches we're still yet to get. Are we going to get any battle royals? Andre, Mae Young, or do those things even exist? Did we get them last year? What the hell even happened last year? I don't even know. But now that WrestleMania is back to normal, are we going to get the battle royals? I don't even know if we're getting them. I haven't seen them listed anywhere, so they might be there. Also, with the Big E injury, it looked like they were kind of heading towards Kofi and Big E taking on Sheamus and Ridge Holland in a tag team match. Been seeing Xavier Woods' name floating around. Why is he even off TV? What's going on with him? He hurt again? I didn't even know what's going on there. But if he returns, joins Kofi, they take on Sheamus and Ridge Holland. And if that match takes place, I would really like to see Big E be there. He seems bored as hell. He's releasing videos every day about how bored he is. He's walking around. He seems like he's got plenty of energy. So I'm pretty sure he could be there. And I think Big E being at WrestleMania, maybe even in the corner of Kofi and Xavier with, obviously he can't do anything physical, but if he could maybe be in the corner and Sheamus and Ridge kind of threaten him, and then Xavier and Kofi make the save or something, and then they win the match, and then maybe Kofi and Xavier celebrate with Big E in the ring, in the neck brace. Might be a nice moment for the fans just to see Big E just in there, see his face, hear his voice. And I'm sure it'll be nice for him because I feel really bad that he missed out on a WrestleMania payday. And it would be nice to try to get him one anyway, even if he can. If not, put him on commentary for the match or something. But get him out there at the very, very, very least in a backstage segment. But I think it would be even more fun if you got him in the ring. Not to do anything. I know he can't do anything. He's got a broken neck. But, if he can walk, he can stand in the ring. So maybe do something like that. Also, you would hope Ricochet is going to have a title defense. There's been talk and rumblings of a ladder match, multi-man IC title ladder match. If they're going to book that, they might want to get on it. Got 2 SmackDowns left to make that happen. And then also, and actually, as a matter of fact, they're probably, what's the deal there? They're going to tape one of them SmackDowns, aren't they? Or are they? No, I guess they're not. The SmackDown prior to WrestleMania will be live. They're just doing the Hall of Fame after that. So there's going to be a quick set turnaround or something. Yeah, so I guess that's not going to be taped, but that is going to be a weird night with Hall of Fame and SmackDown happening on the same night. So you would think if they're going to do an IC title match, you should do that on Friday and not next week when so much shit's going to be going on. We mentioned Balor and Priest. Would be cool to get that match done. And, of course, Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 matches, or 6, depending on how many battle royals we have. 5 or 6 matches that are not technically announced yet. 2 of them not assigned for a night. And in total, let's see if all of these matches get put together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, that would be 18 matches, but that's including 2 battle royals and Kevin Owens and Steve Austin. So if you minus those, it's 15. That's a lot of matches. That's 8 per night, I guess, or 9 per night if it's 18 of them. So, yeah, that's probably it. I don't see any other matches that are out there that they could potentially put together unless, and I think whatever they do with the 24/7 title isn't going to be announced. I think that's just going to be in between buffer shit at WrestleMania. Just segments in between matches. They'll cut backstage to the 24/7 fuckers running around. So that's probably all they'll do there. So yeah, it's looking like an okay stacked card. There's very little of this that I take issue with. I've been one of the more lenient ones in terms of Brock and Roman Reigns. A lot of people are just not liking that this match is happening again, I'm fine with it. So I got no issues there. Knoxville and Sami Zayn, I think it's going to be more fun than we're expecting. McAfee, in theory, could steal the show. Austin, closing out a WrestleMania is going to be fun nonetheless. I think Bianca Belair is going to have quite an awesome moment. So there's a lot of things on here that I'm looking forward to seeing. And AJ and Edge and Cody and Seth are going to have two, pretty epic dream matches, both of which, one we've seen. Cody and Seth we've technically seen. Cody and AJ, however, we have not seen. I asked that question on Twitter today if Cody and AJ had ever faced each other because their window of time was so quick. They just passed by each other quickly and missed each other in Ring of Honor, and then had about 4 to 5 months in WWE where they worked together in 2016 before Cody Rhodes was released. And they were both in the 2016 Royal Rumble together when Cody was Stardust, but I don't think they had any real interaction. So when Cody comes in and he finishes his program with Seth, because that's another thing about the Seth stuff, I think Cody's program with Seth will not just be WrestleMania. They'll probably run it back. So when that's all done, Cody and AJ could be a match I would be very interested in. Cody and Edge is another one. So there's some matches that Cody can definitely have now that he's apparently coming into WWE. I think I'm one of the few people that's oddly excited to see him. I can't believe, with all the shit that I give WWE for how they piss me off on an hourly basis, and they do the most nonsensical crap, and they literally anger me most days. When it comes to this, I'm kind of really curious how they handle him. I'm curious to see what he does there, and I'm excited to see the matches he can have. And when all of the dust settles and he's there, and if he ever does do a Broken Skull Sessions or he does ever explain what brought him back here, I'm really interested to hear that, because I'm sure a lot went into it. And, for him to come back into the company now and make the splash the way he's going to make, a lot of people say, I can't believe he would do that and come back to WWE. I'm like, well, look at how they're bringing him in. Look at the matches he's had, the great matches he's had in AEW. He was doing that in front of less than 1 million eyeballs. And I prefer, this is coming from somebody who likes AEW a hell of a lot more than I like WWE. But he burned his back to shit in that Andrade match for 700,000 viewers or something, and that match he had with Cody or with Sammy Guevara on his way out. That ladder match was fantastic. He did a lot of great stuff there, but still, you come into WWE now and you debut at WrestleMania in a stadium that's big enough to set attendance records. Don't know if they're going to, but it's big enough to. So yeah, that's kind of a bigger spotlight. So I think that's what it's about when it comes to Cody. What is the biggest stage I can, perform my craft on? Like it or not, it's WWE, and I don't like it, but it's the truth. So I want to see what he's going to do there. I think WWE has a lot of respect for the Rhodes family and the Rhodes name. Polka dots or not, Vince has always really loved and appreciated Dusty. And, I think that right there, will be his passage to, a little bit of safety now that he's a little bit more older and matured and a much bigger name now than he was when, prior to him leaving, when they had him in the Stardust getup. So I think that Cody's going to be handled well. I know it's crazy. I usually don't trust the WWE to do anything. I don't trust these guys to wipe their asses properly, but I really think that Cody's run is going to be fun. I really do. And I'm excited to see it. So that's one fan's opinion anyway. But that pretty much wraps it up for all of my notes. I'll go see what you had to say about all this stuff, answer any questions, and then I'm going to get out of here because I got food to eat and that stuff. We have no likes on this video. If you could hook me up with a few more, I would appreciate that. Greg, what if Corey Graves costs McAfee his match versus Theory? I'd love it because that would kickstart what I've been wanting to see, a Graves and Theory program. I don't know if they could push that, though, to SummerSlam. I kind of wanted to see something like that at SummerSlam. That might be tough to do. Might have to do it at one of the in-between pay-per-views, but that could be a way out of it. You would think that McAfee would go over in that, but maybe not. You get Corey Graves involved in there. I'm into any of that. Yes, I would love to see Cody Rhodes against Kevin Owens. That would be amazing. I don't think Goldust is going to return to WWE. I don't. Dustin seems really happy in AEW. Unless Cody, brokers a deal and, kind of gets him back in there and they become those WWE company people. I don't know. And then 12 years from now, they cut him loose. I would say no on that. And a lot of people have been bringing up Stardust. I don't see that either. Like, did Cody like doing Stardust? Because my understanding is, and I don't really truly remember, is that he didn't hate it, but he didn't love it. And it didn't seem like something that was born and created from him. Did he really come up with that? Like, it doesn't seem like Stardust to Cody doesn't seem like what Broken Matt is to Matt. You know what I mean? So if Stardust is going to come back, that to me would mean that Cody wants Stardust to come back. If Cody doesn't want to do Stardust, I'm sure that's going to be talked about before he signs anything. You know, he's going to be like, look, I hated Stardust, so before I write down my name on anything and sign my pretty little signature on your disgusting fucking legal document, I am not going to be Stardust ever again. So my opinion on it is if we see Stardust, is because Cody's cool with it. That's it. We'll see. Goldust comes back for a Hall of Fame induction. Yeah, I think he should come back as Dustin, or they should induct him as Dustin Rhodes, though. And he can talk about his time as Goldust in, WWE, but also his time as Dustin Rhodes, because he had runs under Dustin in a lot of companies. WWE, he was at Dustin briefly, then back to WCW, and now AEW. He was only Goldust in one place, so I'm into. Oh, he probably worked TNA, didn't he? Did Dustin do some TNA stuff? Feels like he would have, but I'm not totally sure. Braun Breaker needs a WrestleMania match. Might be fun to see him just come out and do something at WrestleMania. A lot of people kind of feel like he's going to potentially win the title back at the TakeOver or whatever, and we haven't gotten any more Hall of Fame announcements either, have we? There's been talk about the Steiner brothers going in, and of course he would probably do the induction there. If not, I could see a lot of potential guys doing Steiner Brothers inductions too if it wasn't Braun Breaker. But Breaker, I think, would be fun just to hear his voice and just hear all that and to see him standing there with both those guys and to hear, maybe possibly see Breaker and Scott Steiner interact a little bit at the end, like maybe when they come out and hand the plaque to him or whatever. But I'm very concerned that the Hall of Fame is going to really depress me this year. I am very concerned about it. I don't know what's going on with Brandy. Why, if she's coming in, or I don't know if it's WWE didn't want her. Maybe they just, Brandy's doing other stuff. I saw that she inked some deal to have a cooking show or something. So maybe Brandy's got other interests, and that might be what they're doing. I've said that before about Cody and Brandy. They seem like they really want to be a power couple, and you both don't need to sign your life away. Divide and conquer. I'm going to go to WWE and build our brand there. You go build it over here, and do it that way. But I'm sure Brandy will come in. I feel like at some point we're going to have to see her in WWE in some capacity, but maybe what WWE has in mind for her isn't what she wants to do. She's like, I'm not going to come back as Eden and be a ring announcer. I want to do something. I want to maybe back up Cody. I'd be fine with her being Cody's valet. I'm cool with that. They make a good team. They look good together. Yeah, I don't think Scott should do the promo itself in his induction speech, but I definitely think some math needs to be discussed in the induction speech, it's for sure. But I'm just worried that these speeches are going to be so watered down and short. Back in the day, motherfuckers would talk for 45 minutes. I don't know how long Brett talked for, but it was long. And I know that's torture for the audience, but it's not for a fan watching on DVD, because you can pause it and go take a piss and all that stuff and go to sleep and finish it the next day. So I don't care. But nowadays, I think that they're so edited down and crappy, and even though last year was Thunderdome and it didn't really count, it already looked like they were starting to change shit in 2019 when they had that weird ring and podium setup that I hated. So I think that the Hall of Fame just is not even going to impress me anymore, and as a matter of fact, it's going to depress me, because I used to love the Hall of Fame. And Batista, poor Batista, they announced him last year and then they didn't do it, or whatever year it was. And yeah, the year of COVID, actually. So he'll have to go in at some point. And I like the suggestion of moving the Hall of Fame permanently to SummerSlam. WrestleMania is too much going on now. And you just take away, now the Hall of Fame feels like something that they're phoning in, that's like in the way of all the other shit they're doing. So they just have to do it because they have to, type of thing. If you move it to SummerSlam weekend, now that takeovers aren't what they used to be, and you put that, the night before, well, they're doing Saturday pay-per-views now too. if you somehow incorporated that into SummerSlam weekend, but that might be tough to do now as well if they're going to start doing Saturday stuff, which a lot of fans like. But if the pay-per-view fell on a Sunday, then you can do the Hall of Fame on Saturday. I think that would be fun, but it just doesn't seem like that's the way it works anymore, and it's sad. I miss the old days. I always miss the old days. Ric Flair's Hall of Fame speech was like 3 hours. I only think I watched his Hall of Fame speech once. I watched the Shawn match and his retirement shit on Raw multiple times, but the speech itself, probably just the first night. My favorites, though, I think were definitely Bobby Heenan, number one. I personally loved Brett's. Brett has gone on record saying he didn't love his, but I did. I like Brett's. Those two kind of stand out. I really like the Freebirds way more than I thought I would. I like Iron Sheiks. I would just like it to say it was the best. So many good ones. Yeah, and The Rock going in next year seems possible. I mean, it's in LA. WrestleMania 39. If The Rock went, I would be there, which would be fitting for me to see The Rock go into the Hall of Fame, considering that I saw him when I saw him in person, when he was so crazy, unbelievably green, and literally just right out of the womb, wet as fuck behind the ears. And to see that very same dude be like the biggest movie star in the world and go into the Hall of Fame is pretty cool. I'd like to see that in person. So I'm hoping, Mike, that you're right on that one and Rocky goes in. No, I'm not going to ever consider seeing Eddie Kingston in WWE. Just don't think so. He would already been there. Yeah, but they could do that way, Brandon. You could have less people go in per year so we can get some longer speeches. But, I worry. And it sucks, too, because with the streaming, with Peacock and stuff, you can essentially do anything. You can make this shit as long as you want and then just put an edited version on TV, which I think is what they used to do. Back in the day, I think they used to, I don't know how they did it. I know there was like a 1 hour version that maybe would run on the post-Mania Raw, right? After that. But prior to the WWE Network, how the hell were we watching these things? I'm trying to remember. Prior to 2014. Was it, I think what it was, maybe, was it just on, did they just show the edited 1 hour version and then you didn't get to see the whole thing until the DVD came out? Is that how it worked? That sucks. How did we do it? I was here. I was doing YouTube videos probably talking about it, but somehow I can't remember. Yes, Mike, me and Elizabeth are definitely a power couple. And when I say power, I mean it with her because she hikes hundreds of miles per day and she's got rock hard calves and guns and she's so ridiculously strong that I need not cross her. Okay, so I'm right about that. It only aired the Raw after Mania, but that was just the watered down version. And then we didn't get the whole thing until they put it on USA on Saturday. Would the whole thing air? Yeah, I kind of remember watching the whole thing, I thought, but I just can't remember how it was. Because then you'd have to wait a minimum of 1 month for that DVD to come out. And I was always usually pretty good about picking up the Mania DVDs to get the Hall of Fame stuff off of it. But I think I'm going to try to do that here in the next week or so, like any downtime where I got some editing to do this week. I think I'm just going to pull up, Hall of Fame speeches and watch them. It would be really fun to do a watch along. I've had people ask, you should do some Hall of Fames, but it would be tough to do a watch along because we like to talk and about shit. And if we're talking while they're talking, it's pointless. But when we're watching wrestling, we can just talk during the matches and whatnot. So I don't think it would be really good to do watch alongs of, but I definitely want to go back and watch some speeches this week. Oh, who would win a match, Corey and Carmella? I was about to say, who are Adam and Britt? And now I know who you're talking about. Oh, Adam and Britt all day. All day. Adam is eons better in the ring than Corey Graves. And Britt is eons better than Carmella. That's a squash, Rodrigo. That's not even a match. That is an absolute squash. Match would be 5 seconds long. Super kick, lockjaw, ding, ding, ding. Yeah, Mike, WrestleMania, I will be live streaming both days. So I think I'm going to I got to figure out my schedule and get that all hammered out for work next week. But yeah, I assume, I guess we're going to do 4. We're going to go 4 nights. Friday night for the SmackDown Hall of Fame shit. Then we'll do, of course, Saturday night 1 and Sunday night too, and then we'll definitely want to be here for Raw 2 weeks from tonight, Raw after Mania, to see what the hell is going to happen. So yeah, we should be having 4 straight nights of Mania weekend streaming. I'm going to start putting all that together this week, getting links up, all that stuff, so you guys can have it. And yeah, try to get our ducks in a row for Mania. Well, I'm going to get out of here for tonight. I think that wraps it up. I think we talked about everything we need to talk about. Just a reminder, I will not be here on Wednesday for the Dynamite watch along, because I'm going to be doing some editing to get a different video up to you guys later on in the week. And then we'll be here on Saturday for a big podcast to recap, tonight's Raw, talk about Dynamite, Rampage, SmackDown, whatever's going on with the WrestleMania card, any new news on Cody, and any new news on anything, really. We'll get to that this weekend. And then the following week, it's going to be WrestleMania week. And it's going to be on. So get prepared to see a hell of a lot of my bald head. You guys have a great evening. Take